Knowing that Midnight and Glaive would eventually come for Vision, Rogers notified T'Challa of their intentions and the threat from Thanos, so he began to mobilize Wakanda's armies in preparation for the assault.
The Avengers took Vision to Shuri, who was prepared to undergo the time-consuming process of removing the stone.
However, at that moment, disturbances were detected in the upper atmosphere above Wakanda. Released by an orbiting Q-ship, alien dropships began descending from the sky above the city in a surprise shock invasion by the Black Order. While Wakanda's energy dome prevented them from landing directly in the Golden City, 5 dropships landed safely in the forests outside the dome. In order to buy time for Shuri to remove the Mind Stone from Vision, T'Challa ordered the city be evacuated, all of the city's defenses to be engaged, and for Rogers to be given new shields made of vibranium. While Wanda Maximoff remained with Shuri and Vision to destroy the Mind Stone. After the process was completed, the rest of Rogers' team prepared for battle. Leaving to face the dropships, the Avengers joined T'Challa, Barnes, the Dora Milaje, the Wakandan Royal Guard, the Jabari tribe, and the remainder of the border tribe at the outskirts of the city, preparing to face Thanos' army. As Wakandan armed forces and the Avengers gathered to face the invaders, War Machine detected 2 enemy signatures approaching the city's energy barrier, Proxima Midnight and Cull Obsidian. Steve Rogers, Black Widow, and Black Panther moved to confront and negotiate with the Black Order. Noticing that Corvus Glaive was absent, Black Widow inquired about his whereabouts, only for Midnight to claim that he had perished from his earlier injuries. As Midnight asserted that Thanos would retrieve the Mind Stone, T'Challa warned the Black Order that he would find nothing but dust and blood waiting for him in Wakanda. Midnight countered, boasting that they had blood to spare, before signaling the dropships to release their armies. Finding their opponents non-negotiable, the trio rejoined the rest of the army as they prepared for the invaders. As T'Challa ordered the army to hold position, the dropships opened, releasing the Outriders. At Midnight's signal, the Outriders began relentlessly charging into the Wakandan energy barrier, incinerating themselves with no regard for their own safety, much to the horror of the Wakandan defenders. Despite the barrier killing numerous amounts of Outriders, it was not powerful enough to withhold them all, as several Outriders began to force themselves through the barrier and began directly charging the defenders. The Border Tribe protected the army using their energy cloaks, while the Royal Guards fired on the approaching Outriders using their sonic spears, joined by Bruce Banner and Winter Soldier. Providing air support, War Machine and Falcon bombarded the surviving Outriders from above. However, Banner noticed that the limited success of the direct forward assault caused the Outriders to begin circling the barrier, flanking them instead. If the Outriders breached the barrier behind them, they would have a clear path to the defenseless Vision. In order to prevent this, T'Challa ordered a section of the barrier to be opened so that the enemy would funnel directly towards them with their attention drawn away from Vision. As expected, the Outriders immediately began pouring through the opening en masse. With a final battle cry from T'Challa, the Avengers and Wakandan army charged to meet the Outriders in close combat, holding them off in a bloody melee as Shuri worked. However, as the battle intensified, the Wakandans and the Avengers were slowly overwhelmed by the seemingly never-ending numbers of Outriders. One by one, Barnes, T'Challa, Rogers, and Banner were mobbed and forced to the ground by sheer numbers, while War Machine was blindsided and grounded by Obsidian. However, the tide of the battle suddenly turned when the Bifrost Bridge beamed down from the sky into the center of the battlefield, scattering the Outriders. The newly forged Stormbreaker emerged from the bridge, cutting swaths through the Outriders. To the astonishment and delight of the Avengers and defending army, Thor, Rocket Raccoon and Groot stepped out of the bridge into the battlefield, confronting the Outriders. Thor used Stormbreaker to single-handedly destroy a large element of the Outriders in a single lightning-charged slam, before joining the melee. With the sudden arrival of Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy, allowing the Wakandans to regain their advantage against the Outriders, Cull Obsidian began to fight personally on the battlefield. Obsidian cut swaths through the Wakandan army, before being personally engaged by Black Panther, while Rocket Raccoon and Winter Soldier cooperated to hold off a wave of Outriders. To further turn the tide back in their favor, the Outrider dropship suddenly released a force of Threshers. Burrowing underneath the Wakandan barrier, the Threshers wreaked havoc across the Wakandan army, forcing T'Challa to order a retreat. Observing from Shuri's lab, Wanda Maximoff realized that her allies were outmatched once again. Abandoning her post in the lab to assist on the battlefield, Maximoff used her powers to disable a wave of Threshers, rescuing Black Widow and Alcoy before throwing the Threshers into numerous Outriders, crushing them instantly. Despite Maximoff's reinforcements bolstering the defenders, her intervention proved to be a crucial blunder. The entire battle and the Thresher reinforcements were merely a diversion to draw out Maximoff, leaving Vision unguarded. Once informed by Proxima Midnight that Maximoff was on the battlefield, Corvus Glaive covertly infiltrated Shuri's lab, surprising and defeating the Wakandan guards. Shuri, who was not yet finished removing the Mind Stone and woefully unprepared for battle, blasted Glaive with one of her gauntlets, but failed to stop him and was knocked aside as well. Vision then furiously tackled Glaive, sending them both out a window and into the surrounding forests near the battlefield. Realizing that Vision was compromised, Falcon notified the Avengers before being downed by an Outrider, with Banner and Maximoff moving to assist Vision, as they were being ordered by Steve Rogers. Immediately afterwards, Maximoff was ambushed and nearly killed by Midnight, but was rescued by the still nearby Widow and Alcoy. In the ensuing melee, Midnight began to gain the upper hand and nearly killed Black Widow, but was grabbed by Maximoff's telekinetic powers and thrown into the path of a passing Thresher, gruesomely shredding and killing Midnight. Meanwhile, Glaive continued to assault the weakened Vision, joined by Obsidian. Banner quickly arrived to assist, engaging Obsidian in a duel. Falling into a nearby waterfall, Banner called for reinforcements to stop Glaive as he fought. However, Obsidian began to gain the upper hand, severing the Hulkbuster's left arm. In response, Banner attempted to bring out Hulk to turn the tables, to no avail. Frustrated, Banner resolved to handle Obsidian himself, managing to trap the latter's arm in the severed Hulkbuster arm. Activating the arm's repulsor thrusters, Banner sent Obsidian flying into the Wakandan energy barrier, where he was incinerated on impact with the barrier, killing him. In the forests above, Glaive continued to torment Vision, stabbing and further crippling the android. However, Vision was saved by the sudden arrival of Rogers, who beckoned Vision to run while he held off Glaive. Rogers managed to disarm Glaive, but was quickly overpowered. Before Glaive could kill Rogers, however, he was suddenly impaled from behind and killed by Vision, having taken and used Glaive's own weapon against him. With the remaining members of the Black Order defeated, the Outriders were routed, fleeing back to their dropships in a desperate attempt to escape. However, Thor and the Wakandan Air Force gave pursuit, destroying the dropships one by one as they attempted to flee to space. With the Outriders utterly defeated, Wanda Maximoff arrived at Vision's location, comforting him. However, their respite was short-lived, as Vision suddenly felt a piercing pain from the Mind Stone. Thanos was coming for the stone himself. As unnatural winds began to blow, signaling Thanos' arrival, Steve Rogers sensed the incoming threat and ordered the other Avengers to converge on his position to assist. Suddenly, a portal opened, and Thanos himself stepped through it, arriving in Wakanda. With the power, space, reality, soul and time stones mounted on the Infinity Gauntlet, Thanos stared at the Mind Stone, his final objective, and at the hostiles that stood between him and his goal. As Bruce Banner confirmed his identity, Thanos began slowly advancing towards Vision. Rogers then rallied the Avengers to hold Thanos off for as long as they could. Banner made the first strike, leaping furiously at Thanos, only for him to casually phase Banner out of space using the Space Stone. He tumbled helplessly through Thanos into a solid rock cliff, where he became imprisoned. As Thanos blasted Rogers aside with a shockwave from the Power Stone, Black Panther leaped for Thanos' throat. However, Thanos merely grabbed T'Challa in midair by the throat before brutally punching him into the ground, sending a kinetic shockwave from his suit which Thanos likewise ignored. Falcon attempted to provide air support, only to be incapacitated and grounded by the Space Stone. As Maximoff continued to pool energy into the stone, Thanos was engaged once again by Rogers, who managed to briefly stall Thanos in close combat. Despite managing to briefly hold back the Infinity Gauntlet, Rogers was finally down with a direct punch to the head, leaving only Maximoff to defend Vision. Desperately, Maximoff held Thanos back with a beam of energy to stall him further, who continued to slowly advance while blocking the beam with the Space Stone. However, he was too late, as Maximoff managed to destabilize the stone's structure, shattering it and killing Vision. Thanos activated the Time Stone, using its powers to reverse Vision's destruction, restoring the Mind Stone and rendering Maximoff's actions moot. Before she could stop him, Thanos easily knocked her aside. He took Vision by the throat and ripped the Mind Stone from his head, killing him a second time. Tossing his lifeless corpse aside, Thanos inserted the stone into the gauntlet. As the stone's combined energies flowed through his body, Thanos admired the gauntlet, having finally completed his quest. However, before he could activate it, he was immediately attacked by a vengeful Thor, in a last-ditch attempt to stop him, driving him into the ground with a powerful lightning blast. Regaining his footing, Thanos unleashed an energy blast on Thor, who powered Stormbreaker with all his electrical power and then hurled it with all his might at Thanos' torso. The power of the fully enchanted axe quickly overwhelmed the beam, and Thanos could do nothing to stop Stormbreaker from burying itself deep in his chest. Landing in front of the severely injured Thanos, Thor proceeded to vengefully gloat to Thanos, reminding him of his promise to kill him while forcing Stormbreaker deeper into his chest, causing him further pain and injury. However, despite being grievously wounded and in severe pain, Thanos weakly taunted Thor for not aiming for the head for an instantaneous kill. Thor, realizing his mistake too late, could do nothing but yell in horror as Thanos mustered the strength to simply snap his fingers anyway. The gauntlet was activated in a blinding flash of energy, and Thanos' goal of killing half of all life in the universe was finally achieved.